Good evening. My name is Town Crier Executive Editor Joshua Manning, and I will be serving as the moderator of this candidate forum, which will be broken up into two 50-minute sessions with a 10-minute break. Tonight's forum features the candidates for the Group 1 seat on the Royal Palm Beach Village Council, which are incumbent Jeff Kamara and challenger Julie Highsmith. In a moment, we will begin with their opening statements. Following the opening statements, candidates will be asked questions by a panel of Town Crier staff members who are Ron Buckley, Denise Fleischman, and Barry Manning. The opening question will be answered by Ms. Highsmith first, followed by Mr. Hamara. The second question will be answered by Mr. Hamara first, followed by Ms. Highsmith, and the forum will continue with the candidates rotating the answering order. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. We hope to get through approximately 10 questions before our break. Throughout the first half of the forum, we are soliciting questions from the audience. Please get a card. They are over there. And return it to Betty Buglio. Betty, please wave. There you go. During the break, I will review the submitted questions and choose the ones to ask the candidates. In previous forums, this has often meant merging similar questions together since duplication is common. No questions addressed to a specific candidate, nor questions specifically designed to cast one particular candidate in a bad light will be asked. During the second half of the forum, I will ask the questions, and the answering will continue as in the first half. At the end of the second session, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for a closing statement. That is where we are. And so we begin with an opening statement from Ms. Highsmith.
Hi, everyone. I am Julie Highsmith. I am 41 years old. I have lived in Royal Palm Beach since I was 5 years old. I have been married for 14 years to my husband, Bill. We have 3 daughters. They are 11, 7, and 3, watching from home because it's bedtime. I love the village. I love living here. That's why I decided to raise my family here with my husband. My education background, I got a bachelor's in business administration from Florida Atlantic University. I double majored in marketing and management. I then opened a home healthcare business, which I ran for 16 years in Wellington. I decided I would change careers recently and became a teacher. I teach at H.L. Johnson Elementary School in Royal Palm Beach. And most of all, what I want everyone to know is that I love our village, and if I'm elected, I will make all of the best decisions in the best interest of our residents. Thank you very much. I appreciate the Town Crier doing this for us.
Mr. Hamara.
Good evening, everyone. And, I think we can all agree that the village of Royal Palm Beach is a great place to live. Carolyn and I have lived here for about 20 years now, and we love this piece of paradise, as we refer to it. I believe you know our village. I believe I know our village very well. I believe I've served it very well. And as councilman, I'm prided myself on being readily accessible and available to understand a traffic problem, canal water quality issue, to read to kids in our schools, to follow up on a trash pickup that was missed, or feeding South Florida at Commons Park. I believe the best way to do my job as councilman is from the ground. Actually, I learned that from my military experience. As you may know, I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel, having served in Vietnam, in Korea, and Germany, with Carolyn and our kids following along after for about 26 years. I'm a former federal government executive. I've taught management and ethics at Palm Beach Atlantic University. I've served as president of the Palm Beach County League of Cities, as chairman of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, president of Royal Palm Beach Rotary Club, and president of Madison Green Master Association and Walden HOA. I know this community, and I love this community. And during my time in office, I know we've made innumerable positive impacts on the village of Royal Palm Beach. We opened the magnificent 170-acre Commons Park. We also opened 2 modern assisted living facilities. We've done a complete makeover of the cultural center. We brought the Aldi grocery store and distribution center here. We've begun construction on our new village hall right across the way. And we've begun to design on an expanded recreation center with a seniors wing. We also are working on a new comprehensive plan to prepare for the future. And we've got a lot of challenges facing us. And we've done all this and more without raising property taxes while becoming debt-free. My goal is to keep Royal Palm Beach, the family-oriented American hometown that attracted us all here in the first place, while making changes that are needed to attract the next generation of Royal Palm Beach residents and the next generation after that. Thank you all for being here this evening, and thank the town crier for doing this.
Mr. Buckley? The first question will be answered by Highsmith.
Good evening. What are your top 3 goals over the next 2 years should you be elected to the Royal Palm Beach Council?
My top 3 goals would be to increase what we're doing with our schools, improve upon our partnerships with the schools, to make sure that the area designated in Commons Park for a community garden comes to fruition and becomes a community garden, and also to improve community engagement somewhat. I feel like there's so many great, amazing things going on in our village and at Commons Park and right out here every Saturday. I would like to improve upon getting the word out about those things so that more residents know what's going on and it's right in their face that it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so the top 3 things for me would be a smart, balanced growth. I mean, we have a lot of growth going on out here, as you all have noticed, I'm sure, with Westlake and Arden and Avenir. Actually, they're going to have a total of something around 12,000 new homes coming out of the ground, and that means there's going to be an impact on Royal Palm Beach. We're already feeling it with traffic. It's an impact on our schools. It's an impact on a lot of aspects, and we can prepare for that and deal with it if we've got a good plan going forward. The balanced growth includes making sure that we got the right kind of development going on or redevelopment going on, which means something that needs to be carefully thought through to include the impacts on transportation, the impacts on just being able to move around the community. And so smart growth connects with transportation, and we're at a really good place right now. We've got 3 studies going on that I think will tie in nicely to try to help us figure out just exactly what can we do here in Royal Palm Beach that will help us deal with the impact of all of the growth going on around us. We've got a transportation planning agency study that's taking a look at mass transit, potentially for Okeechobee Boulevard. We've got a study that we're doing on the State Road 7 corridor to look at some of these older commercial developments are going to be redeveloped, and we are in a position where we can guide that redevelopment and make it turn out the way we think will work best. And at the same time, Wellington is taking a look at their mall, and they are in the process of considering changing it from a mall to a mixed-use facility of some sort. So all of these things going on tie into one another nicely. So we're at a really good place to take advantage of these things. And the last thing I would say, Parks and Rec. I mean, we really have a tremendous recreational program. And our parks, well, we got about 21 of them right now, and we're going to be adding 2 new ones to it in the very near future. So keeping those parks and rec, that whole activity up and in front of people, I think is a really important thing.
Thank you. Was this for the candidates or this is for me? Me. Or the question? Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. The next question, to be answered by Mr. Hamara first, is by Denise Fleischman. Close to the mic.
How do you rate the village's handling of the issues surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, and how do you see the pandemic changing village policies both now and in the future?
The first part of that question was, how do I rate the response of the village to the pandemic. I think the village did an excellent job of dealing with the pandemic. I think one of the things we recognized was a lot of the expertise needed to decide how to deal with the impacts of the pandemic really resides in the county, and we relied heavily upon the county for their guidance and direction. At the same time, we, I think, recognized that whenever there was an opportunity to bring vaccination or testing, that we didn't miss that opportunity. And we did that on several occasions at the Cultural Center, and then we still have testing going on at Commons Park. I think we also took a hard look at the staff and the interaction, everything from a council meeting to the daily interactions of the staff. And for a long time there, we requested that people wear masks. If they chose not to wear masks, then they needed to be tested on a regular basis. Incentivized the vaccinations as a result of funds that were provided through the CARES Act. And so I think we were very proactive, but at the same time we recognized the need to get back to some form of normalcy. And so we're moving in that direction, bringing a lot of our programs back and doing other things that get us closer to a more normal existence here in Royal Palm Beach.
Highsmith? Ms. Highsmith?
Thank you. I think that the village's response was great. They leaned on the county, as Councilman Hamara mentioned. I think that the only area that I would see improvement needed would be better communication about what was going on to the residents. You know, beyond that, I think it was good. We just need to have better ways to get the word out to people.
Thank you. The third question will be asked by Barry Manning.
Longstanding policy in the village has been to not connect Madrid Street and La Mancha to State Road 7's extension. Do you support the policy, or can you envision a change in that policy?
I do support the policy to not connect Madrid to State Road 7. That's right near where I live and where my kids bike and to the park and things. I think it would, you know, create added traffic and an entrance that we don't need. So I definitely support not creating that connection there.
Mr. Hamara?
As you said, the policy has been to not open Madrid, and the reason is that there have been several studies done, and there was a recent one done that said that opening Madrid would add 5,000 trips to the La Mancha area a day, 5,000 trips a day, and that is the minimal approach, which would be a right turn out only. 5,000 trips is a lot, and in fact, one of the reasons that we even did sandpiper speed humps was because of the cut-through traffic that was experienced over there. So we know that would happen to that neighborhood. It's a residential neighborhood. We don't want to make it into a thoroughfare. But there is a problem with the traffic backing up, as you all know, at La Mancha, at Ponce de Leon and Okeechobee Boulevard. And so there is a plan on the books right now for the extension of La Mancha Avenue from Balboa to Okeechobee Boulevard, so that there'll be an additional exit and entrance available. There'll be a traffic light installed there, and it'll also serve for the FPL bike and pedestrian path as a safer crossing than what we have right now. So that's on the books. Looks like it'll be 2024 before it would be finished.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a message to stand closer to the mic. Can you hear me now? Okay. Royal Palm Beach has no direct control over its schools. However, it does have a committee that works to keep the lines of communication open. Both of you have worked on the committee as a liaison or member. Does Royal Palm Beach do a good job working with local schools? And what, if anything, would you like to do differently?
It's a first.
Tomorrow, right?
Oh, okay. All right. So that's okay. So the Education Advisory Board actually is how I met Ms. Highsmith, was an opportunity for me to do something that I committed myself to after having taught for 5 years at Palm Beach Atlantic University and seeing a lot of adults who came into my classes who were not well prepared with basic skills of reading, writing, arithmetic, and other basic skills that meant it was very difficult for them to pursue their work as trying to get degrees that they'd always wanted to get. Big problem, absence of those basic skills. I promised myself if I ever had a chance to influence local schools, I would do that. When I got elected to council, I heard about the Education Advisory Board, and I thought, well, maybe that is a good opportunity to do that. So I volunteered to be a liaison, and I think I've been doing that about 8 years now. And I think our Education Advisory Board actually is recognized as one of the models here in Palm Beach County for a good, moderate approach to connecting with our schools, communicating with our schools, giving them a communications platform to share information with the community, to challenge them, ask questions, pursue certain issues that are of concern to us, but also to support them. I know I've had the opportunity to actually support Royal Palm Beach High School in their pursuit of their International Baccalaureate program. Now, as many of you all know, that's the only program in this part of the county, the only school that has an IB program. And I was part of that process and was able to represent the community, showing an interest and a knowledge of what that program was all about. There are a lot of ways that we can actually help our schools. There are many, many ways that we can help our schools. And so those are just some of them. And I think we can do more than what we've done. And it's a matter of just continuing to look for new opportunities to actually help our schools. By the way, we've got 4A schools, 2Bs, and
Let's wrap up.
our goal is get them all to A's. So,
Ms. Highsmith?
Could you repeat the question? Because I think it was two parts. I want to make sure I answer
Sure.
both parts.
Royal Palm Beach has no direct control over its schools. However, it does have a committee that works to keep the lines of communication open. Both of you have worked with that committee either as a liaison or a member. Does Royal Palm Beach do a good job working with local schools? And what, if anything, would you like to do differently?
Okay, thank you. I think we do an okay job. I think we have a great board. The board is amazing. Having that many people volunteer their time, it's wonderful. It's a great group of people. I love doing that. Unfortunately, I no longer qualified for that once I became employed as a teacher. So after my first year on that board, I really felt like that first year was learning and seeing what it was all about. I wish it could do more. I would love to see that board have more impact. And I know that we don't have direct control over our schools. I understand that. The schools are showing up for us every month. They're telling us all the great things that they do. What I would like for us to do in return is say, what do you need? What could we do that would be helpful to you? And I don't see that part happening. And that's really would be my goal if I were liaison to that board.
Thank you.
How do you feel the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office is doing fighting crime in the community? What area, if any, do you feel needs improvement in regards to law enforcement?
That is Ms. Highsmith first.
Okay. I think PBSO is doing a wonderful job in our community. I know that we have new cameras being installed that will help fight crime when stolen vehicles or crimes that are involving vehicles come through our community. I like that they can work with other municipalities nearby to make sure that we're all on the same page with fighting crime. So I think they're doing a great job, and I would welcome the opportunity to work with them.
I think
Mr.
PBS,
Hamara?
PBSO District 9 is doing an outstanding job. They've got outstanding leaders and also people that are really dedicated. I mean, they believe firmly in the importance of what they do, and I think we see that result. We're actually among the top 15 mid-sized cities as being among the safest cities in Florida. That's a pretty remarkable accomplishment, and I think it's evidence of the outstanding job that they're doing. These license plate readers, which there was an article in the paper about them, really plugs a hole. In fact, what I was told was we basically here in Royal Palm Beach were the hole in the donut. There were license plate readers in Wellington, license plate readers in West Palm Beach. They needed to be connected, and so that was a logical thing for us to support. We are, of course, like anybody else, concerned about what happens to data that's collected like that. And in talking with PBSO, I believe that they have procedures in place to make sure that the data is only used for the pursuit of criminals and criminal activity. Nevertheless, it will improve what we've had as a particular problem in this area over, I'd say, several years that has gotten dramatically better and will get even better now, and that is car break-ins. And so I think there's a lot of benefit to be derived from these cameras, and I think the key is having them in the hands of these outstanding professionals that we have over here at District 9.
Thank you.
To Mr. Mara first. How would you rate the village's recreation programs and park system? What would you like to see more of or less of? What other changes, if any, would you like to see regarding parks and recreation?
Would you repeat the last part of that?
I'll give you the whole thing again.
No,
if you
no,
want.
just the last part's fine.
Okay. If you'd like to see changes, what changes, if any, would you like to see regarding parks and recreation?
Well, first of all, I'd rate the Parks and Rec as an A plus, A plus plus. I mean, one of the things we have here in Royal Palm Beach is a fantastic park system. In fact, I think we have more park and recreational area per capita than any other city in Palm Beach County. We, as I said, we're going to be adding 2 new parks, and actually they're going to fill a couple of voids that we have, so it's absolutely perfect. North Crestwood, and then one in the new development off of Southern Boulevard. The parks themselves are fantastic. If you've all seen the Royal Palm, the magazine here recently, you know that that we have a recreation visionary who runs our parks. That's Lou Recchio, and he does a great job. Innovative, coming up with new things all the time. There's always something else that can be done, though, when you start with a palette or a campus that actually has 170 acres of beautiful land, which is Commons Park. So there's more that we can do with Commons Park. Some of it's on the plan. Some of it is information ideas that would come from you all. But there is a great opportunity there to continue to expand that. I don't know that there's much we can do, having said all of that wonderful about the park, since we have one entrance and one exit. And so we invite you all to come to the 4th of July, which I suspect you probably have, and then you know why I said what I just said. So if there was a way for us to be able to find a way to give relief to the traffic that we accumulate because it's so popular, that would be something that I would definitely like to see done.
Ms. Highsmith.
I think our Parks and Recreation Department's amazing. My kids use a lot of the classes at the rec center. They have a lot of things for our youth there, which I appreciate. They have a ton of senior programs. They have so many events at Commons Park. Obviously, that park is amazing. We use it all the time. The only thing I would want to work on them with, and I wouldn't even say it's an improvement, it's just something that's there. That park space has been designated for a really long time for a community garden. I'm told all they can do is irrigate it. I feel like we could partner, we could do more to make that happen for the residents who really, really want a community garden. I think it could bring together people of all ages to do something wonderful for the community. So that would be the only thing that I would want to do different.
Thank you.
Right. How do you rate the programs that the Village of Royal Palm Beach provides for its senior citizens? What else, if anything, would you like to see the village do for seniors?
This is to Ms. Highsmith first.
Having worked with seniors for 20 years of my 40, it's really, really important to me. I think the services we're offering are great. They're wonderful. I know that Wellington Cares is a nonprofit service that's trying to expand. They're working to expand into the Royal Palm Beach area. I would love to see that happen for our seniors. The new facility that's here is wonderful. But I think the services being provided are great. That would be the only addition that I would have. Thank you.
Mr. Hamara?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. You want me to?
How do you rate the programs that the Village of Royal Palm Beach provides for its senior citizens? What else, if anything, would you like to see the village do for seniors?
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the recreational programs for seniors are absolutely outstanding. I mean, Young at Heart Club that meets pretty much every month except for the summer provides a great form of entertainment. It's obviously very, very popular. Even as we're coming out of the pandemic, we have hundreds of seniors showing up there. And it's not just about the entertainment, it's about the camaraderie. And anybody who is a senior, that would be me, knows how important it is to be around other people. And I think one of the things the village does particularly well is provide opportunities for people to gather together. And there is a free lunch program, and I don't remember the correct title of it, which is coming back online. In fact, I think it did yesterday, as a matter of fact, over at the rec center for folks who otherwise have difficulty getting food, especially prepared food. And that's always been hugely popular. That's coming back online. So as we come out of the pandemic, some of these additional senior programs are coming back online. One of the ones that we found an opportunity to actually weigh in and create a program for is something that we call the Senior Referral Program. And it helps connect seniors with resources. And one of the things that's so frustrating is to know that there are so many resources out there, county, state, even federal, that people just don't know how to connect with. And so setting up a group of people who become better and better every time that they work with a new case of individuals who need some help, whether it's through 211 or the Area Agency on Aging, or whatever the resource might be, they get better and better at it. And so that becomes a huge resource. That's ongoing now at our rec center. And the last thing, our rec center is on the books to be expanded. And one of the reasons we're going to expand it is we're going to create a senior wing.
10 seconds.
So that's my answer, especially since you said enough.
Still at 3 seconds. Okay, Denise?
Much of the new development in Royal Palm Beach is in the area known as Tuttle Royale. What are your thoughts regarding how the project has come together?
This is for Mr. Hamara first.
Well, my thoughts are, first of all, that it's going to bring something unique to this entire area. At the center, literally, is planned to be an entertainment district, which will contain places where you can actually bring your kids and family. Actually, it's been referred to as City Place West. And that's a pretty good characterization because it's the same types of shops and restaurants and entertainment activities that will be provided in that center location of what will be a mixed-use development. And one of the things that makes that so powerful is, as I said, Wellington is looking at actually doing something completely different with their mall. And so there's going to be a lot of need for a lot of activities that at one point in time you could find at the green at Wellington Mall, and or the mall at Wellington Green. Yeah, I got it right now. And you're not going to be able to find it in this area unless we do something to fill that gap. The other thing is that it's located near two major highways, thoroughfares. So insofar as traffic impact is concerned, it'll be not as significant had we done it at another location. It's on the edge of Royal Palm Beach. It also will tap into the mass transit activity and planning that's going on right now with our TPA. And all in all, I think it's going to be a tremendous added feature to Royal Palm Beach.
Ms. Highsmith?
I think that I wonder why it seems like nothing's happening there. So that's one thought that I have about it. I don't know a tremendous enough about it. I'd like to research it more for sure, but I think it's going to involve a lot of traffic at what is the busiest intersection, I think, in Palm Beach County. So that would be concerning to me, the traffic impact that it's going to have. Also, the impact on our schools. How many kids are going to be there? I heard there was going to be a school, maybe a charter school there that now doesn't want to be there because it's taking so long to, happen. So those would be my concerns: traffic and the kids having a school that they fit in.
Thank you.
The village has recently been discussing policies regarding the future of its major commercial corridors. What are your thoughts regarding the future of these areas, particularly State Road 7 and the Okeechobee Boulevard corridor?
So you're referring to connecting State Road 7 further north from from Okeechobee Boulevard.
Well, it's more about the future planning of it, which that would be part of.
Right.
It's a broad question to get your thoughts on the major commercial roadways.
Okay. Obviously, we have to have roads for people to get from point A to point B. So it's important. It's something that, we bring in experts. The village has people that help guide you in those decisions. So that's something that, it's not my area of expertise. I would have to delve much deeper into that. But as far as connecting it to Madrid, I'm not interested in that. Also, putting another light on Okeechobee Boulevard between where the Willows and La Mancha is, I don't think is a good idea either. So those are my thoughts on traffic in State Road 7.
Mr. Hamar?
So one of the things we have ongoing right now is a study with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council staff to take a look at State Road 7 corridor. And the question that we pose to them is, given that that corridor contains a number of older commercial activities, malls and strip malls of one sort or another, it's likely that somebody's going to step in and want to redevelop those commercial malls at some point. The question is, what do we think those malls ought to be redeveloped into? What should they look like? Should they be a mixed use of some sort? Should they be a singular, stay with the commercial activities? What is the best use of that area? Then realizing, of course, that government, as it should be, should not be directing anything like that, but we certainly can guide it by virtue of changes that might be required of our code to encourage certain types of development to replace what's out there right now when it comes time. You all have been through the pandemic as we have, and you know that you tend now to pick up the phone or pick up your phone and place orders rather than going to the store. So the days of what they refer to as brick and mortar is diminishing, and the kinds of stores that still need to physically be present are not the same as they were, and we've seen that as a result of the impact of the pandemic. So the question is, what's the best use of that outlying area of commercial development and redevelopment? what would serve us best? And one of the answers is something that would work well with a mass transit system, one that's efficient, one that's attractive. And this is where we take the study that we're doing right now in the State Road 7 corridor.
10 seconds.
And we also then combine it with the results that we're getting from the Transportation Planning Agency study of the Okeechobee Boulevard to determine what's the right mix of redevelopment
Please wrap up.
and mass transit. So
Ron Buckley's question for Mr. Hamara.
Royal Palm Beach is currently building a new village hall. What are your thoughts regarding this project? Is there anything you would change regarding the project and other projects in the future?
well, I think the idea of building a new village hall is probably overdue. Our current building, which we all know and love, and especially enjoy all of the entering and exiting, to be able to find a building department, all that kind of stuff, is a result of kind of a patchwork approach. So over 42 years, we have redesigned, redeveloped, and repaired that building. It is time to replace that building. And one of the important considerations is that we make the new building, and this is the plan, a hurricane-hardened facility, so that when we, unfortunately, as we do from time to time, experience the need to stand up our emergency operations center, we have to physically pick up computers and move them from our current building, which is not hurricane hardened, over to an adjacent building, which is. So this new building is going to be hurricane hardened. It's also going to be very flexible. That is to say, we're not going to be using this building anymore for our council meetings. We'll be using a new council chamber, which will have sliding glass doors that will open onto a large atrium area that makes it expandable. So if we have more people than we do tonight, we'll have plenty of room. It won't be a problem just by rolling the doors back. And of course, the most important thing, it'll be customer friendly. You walk in, there'll actually be a reception desk, be able to direct you to wherever you need to go, rather than hoping that you're going to run into somebody in the parking lot who can tell you where to go to do what you need to do. A lot of great advantages, and we're excited about it. And the best part is that we're not just talking about it. You can go look right behind the current building. You'll see it coming out of the ground.
Ms. Highsmith?
I think it definitely was overdue. The other building, trying to go in multiple doors to get something accomplished, was a major challenge. My preference would always be to update facilities, but sometimes you just can't, and it's time to start new. And I am especially happy to hear that it's going to be a LEED certified building. Also, that it's hardened and safe for hurricanes, so that the staff have a place to go and be safe when they're here, making sure that we're all safe.
Okay, so that was the first 10 questions. We still have a little bit of time before our break, so we will continue with another 2 questions, and then we will take our break. You read the next. Come read the next question. Go right ahead.
Starting with Mr. Mara.
No, that's the last question. Starting with Ms. Highsmith.
That's what I said, starting with Ms. Heisman. What are your thoughts regarding the village's finances, this year's budget, and project into the future?
I think our budget is good, or it's strong. I think that it's great that our millage rate has stayed steady for, I think, 20 years. We haven't had to tap into our very large surplus, so that's great. There's probably things I would do differently if I were, involved in that decision making. Most importantly, I think that our surplus is probably excessive, but beyond that, I think our budget is great.
Mr. Hamara?
this year's budget is 64 million, I think, and it's also a budget that builds in and relies upon all of the sources of revenue that we have, including our portion of the penny sales tax. All of it is lined up with our strategic plan, which identifies specific projects that we think are important by the years in which we think they would have the greatest impact and be most effectively done. So we have a strategic plan that is a basis for our budget preparation, and we are in extremely good financial condition. Probably one of the most financially sound cities in Palm Beach County. Not just the reserve that we have, but also the fact that that we are prepared for any uncertainty with regard to financial and economic conditions, which, as we know, can fluctuate all over the place. We have done well in preparing for the actual development of some of the new facilities that we have. I mentioned the Village Hall being 42 years old. Well, a lot of our buildings are old, as our canals are, and they require a considerable amount of money in order to repair them and to bring them up to speed. And so we are using the money that we have in what I consider to be a very effective way, based upon our strategic plan, which lays out specifically the kinds of activities that we want to undertake. We also have the benefit, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of a situation, of the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, there you go, ARPA funds, that are coming from the federal government. This is the first time in history that the federal government has ever sent money directly to the cities. So we are at a point in time when we can accelerate a lot of the programs that we have planned, that we have had planned for a number of years, and do them quickly and basically bring us up to a better place infrastructure-wise.
Thank you.
Does the village do an effective job communicating with residents? What, if anything, would you do to improve this?
That is Mr. Hamara first.
Well, I can say that the village has gotten much, much better at putting in place regular communications. We have we have a magazine that comes out quarterly, which is the Community Connection, and it pretty much tells you everything you would want to know about what's going on in the village, and it does it in a really good form. We also have a monthly email blast that goes out to everybody in the village, called the Vector, and that keeps everybody current on what's going on, especially with regard to the council and policy type of issues. We have hired a part-time PIO. I think, honestly, in order to get really better at this, we need to consider bringing on a full-time PIO. We have done, and he has done, remarkable things with our website. And so if you haven't checked out the website, it's royalpalmbeach.com, and it's got just about everything on it that you could imagine. And the best part about it is it's flexible, it keeps current, and so that's where to get the breaking news. The other thing is, as I'm sure you all just are fascinated to sit at the traffic light reading the electronic message boards. I know I can hardly wait to see the next thing popping up. And so we have used a lot of different mechanisms to get the word out. We could do better with social media. We really could do much better with social media. And I'm always interested in some kind of an approach to get some feedback and a dialogue that doesn't blow up, as unfortunately social media has from time to time. But we're going to stay after that because we think it's the right thing to do. And the last thing is, each one of the council members, I think, enjoys getting out into the community. You all need to invite us out into the community, ask us questions, give us a chance to share with you all.
Thank you. Ms. Highsmith?
I think that the village could do much better in this area. I think the vector you only get if you sign up for. I had never heard of the community connections thing until just now. So I haven't seen that. If it's happening, that's great, but if people aren't seeing it, it's not effective. The social media posts have been a little bit better, but they're not frequent enough and they're not up to the minute enough. The website is definitely easier where it comes to looking for things you know are on the village website, but where it comes to promoting events, they should be right there. And so, I mean, it's great. The website improvements are huge. That's definitely better. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Okay, so we're about 3 or 4 minutes early from the 50-minute mark, but I think we'll take a 10-minute break at this point so that everybody can stretch their legs a little bit. There are refreshments. There's water for people in the room. There's water and there's cookies and there's some coffee. Please enjoy it. If you would like to submit a question for consideration in the second half, please do so. I am going to be looking at those during the break. Thank you. Take your seats. We're going to begin in 2 minutes. 2 minutes? We'll resume. If anybody had any questions they would like to submit, now would be the time to do it. If you haven't already. All right. What was the second one? Here. Okay, I think we're ready to resume. Um, there were not a whole lot of questions from the audience, but there are a few, and I will start with those, and then I have some extras. So we've got 8 or 9. What? We got 8 or 9 questions. And then when we're done with all the questions we have, we'll move on to the concluding statements. The last question was the first half was for Mr. Hamara first. So the next question will be for Ms. Highsmith first. And it is, why are you the most qualified candidate for this seat?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. I feel like I represent the demographic of Royal Palm Beach, which is majority women, around my age, mostly mothers. I think that some new, fresh ideas are necessary to move our village forward. I think that I have a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. I love to learn. So I'm excited for the potential there.
Thank you, Mr. Hamara.
Well, I think that my qualifications kind of stand for themselves, but one of the ones that I think is most valuable is really the opportunity that I've had while being on the council to participate in some other organizations in addition to the council, such as the Transportation Planning Agency. And I was talking about the mass transit study that they have underway, the League of Cities, and being able to be the president of the League of Cities, working with the Florida League of Cities to try to protect our home rule so that the state legislature and their enthusiasm doesn't take away our opportunity to figure out what's best for you all here, closer to you all than they are up in Tallahassee. Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, they do amazing work in a regional sense because we are part of a larger system. And so what that does is it creates an opportunity, and it has been a learning opportunity for me. And I think I've gotten a pretty good understanding of many, many aspects of things that affect us here in Royal Palm Beach. And it's a lot more complicated than it might seem. We're not an island. I think we all know that. And it's important to stay current on what's going on in the community, and also then to be a voice for Royal Palm Beach. Somebody once said, and I love this expression, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're likely to be on the menu. And what that basically means is you really need to be involved. And so being on these different groups has served a purpose for Royal Palm Beach in a lot of ways. Getting good ideas from other communities, also being able to influence decisions that affect us, and then, of course, building relationships. So when you place a phone call, somebody knows you because you sat on a committee together, you worked together on another project or something of that nature. That kind of influence is huge. It makes a tremendous difference throughout the spectrum of things that we're responsible for. And then, of course, I love the community. During the pandemic, in order to find a way to keep exercise going, I got on my bike and I rode through neighborhoods that I would have never otherwise seen. And so I really have a good feel for this community. I'm willing to stand out at a cul-de-sac and have a conversation, as I did Belisaro 2 weeks ago. I stand up in front of our HOAs and talk whenever I can get a chance to, but more importantly, I listen. That's the other phrase I love. 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. So,
Thank you. You want to read this one? Okay. Yes. To Mr. Hamara first. Please share your experiences with capital projects such as drainage system improvements and bridge slope stabilization currently on the village docket.
now everybody knows exactly what that is, right? I have a pretty good idea of both of them, but the bridge slope stabilization, is that right? Okay. So if you go down Royal Palm Beach Boulevard and you look at the new Dunkin' Donuts that is being built, there is work that's been done on that canal bank, and it's right next to a bridge. And of course, keeping the foundation of bridges stable is really, really important. And that is one of the projects that we've been working on, and it's long term. These are usually, first of all, not fast, and they tend to be somewhat expensive, but they are extremely important, especially here in Royal Palm Beach. You know, we have about 18 miles of waterway here in Royal Palm Beach. It's a lot of canals, and while we use it for recreation purposes, the primary purpose of it is drainage. Incredibly important to us. Anybody who's lived here for more than 10 years knows what these rains can do to us and how quickly we can become inundated. Without the canals properly dredged, without the canals properly maintained, we would have much more flooding than we ever see here in Royal Palm Beach. And we do pretty well. We really do well. But it's because of the maintenance that we do on our canals. And, of course, our bridge stabilization work is really important in order to keep our bridges sound.
Thank you. Ms. Highsmith.
Okay, obviously I'm much less familiar with this because I'm not on the village council yet. Obviously bridges should be stable. We're walking on them, biking on them, driving on them. So obviously we need to make sure that's happening. Our village has an amazing staff who makes sure that our council members have all of the information that they need to make the best decisions. So I feel very comfortable with my education background and my business background to be able to quickly get up to speed on all of the issues that are on the docket, whether that's bridge stabilization or anything else. So yes, let's keep the bridges stable.
Thank you. The next question is for Ms. Highsmith first.
First time I asked this question was 24 years ago, and I'm asking it exactly the same way as I asked it then. What are we going to do about reducing traffic issues in the village?
If it's still a problem, I'm not sure anyone can fix it. I'm just kidding. That was a joke, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Traffic issues are very serious. Obviously, they're very serious issues. That was to me first, correct? I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes. No, go ahead.
I have a habit of doing that. traffic is always a concern. The more you grow, the more traffic you have. So you have to continuously run traffic studies and base your decisions on that. So as we continue to grow and change, we have to move things around, and it's always going to be an issue. It's always going to be a question that you're asking, because it's always going to be changing. Yeah, I'll still be here.
Okay. Mr. Hamara, the question is regarding Royal Palm Beach reducing traffic issues in the village.
I'd love to know what the answer was 24 years ago. I bet that would be an interesting picture. You can share it with us later. So one of the answers that I've heard offered by, unfortunately, the Florida Department of Transportation is more lanes, more cement, more concrete, even to the point where Southern Boulevard, as much of a problem as it is today, is going to become even more of a problem as Arden continues to grow, as the traffic increases from Westlake as it continues to grow, was to double tier, to have an elevated roadway above Southern Boulevard. Now try to imagine that. It's kind of mind-boggling, and it certainly would change the look and feel of the entire community, even though it's on the boundary of our community. But that's the answer that's been offered up, and it's actually on the books right now, and we're pushing real hard to find alternative to an elevated roadway that would actually start, if I remember correctly, at Royal Palm Beach Boulevard and go all the way down to Congress, and then it would come down, and so anyway, that's the plan. Well, more concrete is not necessarily the answer for a lot of reasons. And so what is the answer? Well, the answer is some alternative means of transportation. And I don't expect everybody to get on their bikes and ride to work or ride to school. But the idea of some attractive, efficient mass transit is what the Transportation Planning Agency is looking at right now. That's a big project. A lot of people say, you're not getting me on a bus. And I'll tell you, come on, let's have a cup of coffee, and I'll tell you what it was like in Northern Virginia when I said the same thing, and then 5 years later, I'm looking for any mass transit solution. I don't want to see us go down that road. There's some really good ideas, and even if it's just a really neat bus that is efficient,
Please wrap up.
and attractive, and available, with transit hubs located at key places like the intersection of Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7 as one possibility. Or even something more extreme like a light rail system. So that's there are some solutions. We're working on them right now, and hopefully you won't have to ask that question in 24 years. Okay, maybe you will.
So anyway, the answer 20 years ago was extend State Road 7 to North Lake Boulevard.
So
You promised you wouldn't tell.
Go over there. Let me ask the next question.
of that. So we still don't know whether that's true or not.
Okay. This question is directed to Mr. Hamara first. How do you think the village is doing as far as promoting arts, cultural events, and other entertainment in the community?
We are headed in a dynamite direction here. We just, it was a couple of years ago, I guess, put together an ordinance that put together a program of art in public places here in Royal Palm Beach. Now, the county's had that for a long time. And some of the communities, Wellington and others, have really stepped in that direction before. But we are stepping in that direction seriously. We've actually got a manager, an artist, who, that's an interesting combination. I've got to be careful because my daughter will get angry at me. But an artist who can actually manage is something that's exceptional. Well, we have that young man working right now to put together an art program for Royal Palm Beach that will include everything from sculptures located at different places, and we have some of those around Royal Palm, to things that I think are more significant, like opportunities for local artists to show their art here in Royal Palm Beach on a regular basis. We do these 4 events over at Commons Park. What a great setting. We've got a market, a green market. What a great opportunity. We got beautiful buildings, and we're going to have an even more beautiful building with this Village Hall to be able to post art, local artists' works in those places is part of what we're planning to do. It's an exciting time. We actually even put money against it that shows you how serious we are about it. And I think it's going to be money well spent. So I'm excited about it. We're heading in a really good direction.
Ms. Highsmith? Sure. How do you think the village is doing as far as promoting arts, cultural activities, and other entertainment in the community?
As I mentioned before, I think they're struggling with promoting all the things that we're doing. Um, I think the things that we do have are amazing, though. I love the pieces of artwork that we have in our parks and all around the village. Um, I'm definitely a fan of all of that, and I would like to see more of it, and I would like to see it be from residents creating that art as well as promoting it. So doing unveilings, doing, you know, ceremonies and things like that.
Thank you. Okay. This is the question that always gets me a phone call the next day. Directed to Ms. Highsmith first. How would you rate the job Village Manager Ray Liggins is doing, and what, if anything, would you like to see done differently?
Okay, I think he's doing a fine job. Like I said, our staff at the village is amazing. Everyone there has been amazing as I've gone through this entire process. Um, I think we could do better at promoting what's happening. I think that partnering, Parks and Rec partnering to make the community garden has to happen. So there's little things. I think there's always room for improvement, but I think he's doing a great job.
Mr. Hamara?
I am writing notes down. Oh, actually, my response to that is that the 10 years I've been doing this, I got to see Ray in the first couple of years of his tenure as village manager. And being an engineer myself, I know how the transition to actually being something that isn't an engineer is not an easy thing. To develop those softer skills and to mature into that job is a remarkable thing. And I think Ray has done an outstanding job in that area. He really combines some of the best of an intensive approach, which is typical of engineers, very structured, very analytical, with soft skills that he knows he needs to keep working on, just as all of us do, quite frankly. But he's doing a remarkable job. He really is. One of the things that I think I read, and I believe totally, is that the village of Royal Palm Beach is one of the best, if not the best managed municipality in Palm Beach County. And I really believe that a lot of that is due to the work that he has done. So just like everybody else, you know, there's always room for improvement. But I've watched him mature into this job, and I think he's doing an outstanding job.
Thank you. For Mr. Hamara first.
Hello? It's Ray. What?
Very funny.
Who am I addressing this to? Mr. Hamara?
Mr. Hamara first.
Okay. What would you do to bring more new business into the community?
That's been a topic that we have discussed frequently at our strategic planning sessions, as a matter of fact. And I mean, it's one thing that we have done, which I think would be great if we could replicate it in other areas. And that is, I don't know whether you all know about Royal Palm Brewing Company or not, but we did not have a ordinance that would permit a brew pub, a microbrewery, or whatever you want to call the craft brewing kinds of, you know, restaurant, gathering place. And so we had to create the ordinance. And we did this about 5 years ago. And so far, we've got one, but you know what? It's the only one in the Western communities. So good for us, we did that. And that was a local family with a dream to do something unique that they had particularly good skills for, and they got support from the village to be able to do that. Now, hopefully we'll see more of those. That was the hope, create an ordinance to open that up. I think that model can be replicated for other businesses, entrepreneurial kinds of ideas that we don't currently have permitted here in Royal Palm Beach. So I think that's one way to open up the environment. We also have just recently moved toward a more friendly approach, but appropriately structured for home-based businesses, which is another area that the pandemic has really brought to light. And so focusing on that, looking to motivate people in a direction that would bring that ability to have your own business in the community, so long as it doesn't create a commercial space out of what otherwise is a residential neighborhood. These are great opportunities, and I think there's more of them out there.
Ms. Highsmith?
I think a great way to bring small businesses would be working with the people that own the current empty space, building, available lease space now, and just talking with them about what they could do differently. I mean, there's so many creative ideas. A businessman that I knew in Wellington, Ken Adams, he took a big, huge building, pieced it out into very small offices for people that didn't want to be in their home working, but still they wanted an office and amenities. So they took a big building, pieced it into smaller ones, which kept the rent lower for the small businesses, allowed them to have an actual office, a shared community space for conferencing, things like that, new ideas, I think, and working with our businesses that are here that could do things like that is one way that we can work to bring more businesses here. I don't know that there's ordinances that are prohibitive so much of small businesses coming into our community right now. If there were that needed to be changed, I think I would definitely be open to that.
Thank you. Next question to Ms. Highsmith first. How do you feel about the way council meetings are conducted? Is there ample opportunity for public input at meetings? And what would you do differently over the next 2 years?
I think the meetings are run really well. Everyone's professional, they get along. Some other places very close to us don't have that, so that I think is exemplary. What would I do differently? I would try to get more people to show up and maybe publicize more where they are and when they are. It happens, but not enough. It's not enough. They're just not showing up unless they feel really, really strongly about an issue, and then those issues sometimes maybe aren't addressed, and so it discourages people. So I think opening that communication up and letting people know when the meetings are and how easy it is to come here and how easy it is to talk to the council members.
Thank you. Mr. Hamar?
Well, since our mayor is sitting here, I wouldn't say anything other than I think he runs an excellent meeting. Actually, I would have said that if he wasn't sitting here, because I think he runs an excellent meeting. And there's ample opportunity. He offers it routinely on a regular basis. I think I've memorized the script that he uses, but it's to say there's ample opportunity to weigh in as the public. We're looking for your comments. We're looking for your input. And the council meeting format is one that is particularly open to that. And I've been very impressed with the way that these meetings have been run. With that said, one of the things that we talk about from time to time is workshops. And we were just talking about how do you inform the public. Well, one of the ways to inform the public is to have workshops where you bring in experts, and whether it's somebody from a transportation planning agency or somebody that's currently doing a study, bring those folks in to not only inform the council, which is an important thing to do, but also to give the public an opportunity to become informed on activities before they get to a decision point. A long time ago, I asked a question, even though I'd never been involved in anything political like this directly. How do you get people's input before they get angry at you? And I think the individual I asked that, I thought it was funny. I was serious. And quite frankly, I still haven't found a good answer to that question. So we put workshops out there, and unfortunately, a lot of folks don't show up. In fact, the last workshop we did, I think we had as many council members as we did members of the public. But you got to keep doing it. You got to keep reaching out and trying to encourage the public to weigh in and be involved. But I'd like to see us do more workshops as integral parts of our council meetings.
Okay. This question is for Mr. Hamara first.
Okay. Is the village doing a good job maintaining its roads, canals, and lakes? If yes, talk about it. If not, what would you like to see done?
Well, I think our roads are in particularly good condition. I know that we have a 5-year plan for road maintenance, and it's very methodical. It's very engineer based. It's based on real world kind of sampling that's done on our roads to make sure we understand that the surface is not necessarily the biggest problem we may have. It's beneath the surface, and so there are sonic devices that can be used and other electronic media to determine whether or not the underlayment is sound and that type of thing. And that's really, really important as we continue to maintain our roads. We don't want to just resurface the roads. We need to also do any kind of repair of the base layer of these roads. Otherwise, you resurface it, they crack, and you wind up right back where you started. But we have a very methodical approach. We have a scheduled approach to both doing the sampling of these roads and also to doing the repairing of these roads. It's part of our budget, and it's a methodical approach that I think makes good sense. The canals, oh my goodness, the canals are so much better now. I remember we could hardly have a meeting about 5 years ago without having Bob Carter show up, rest his soul, and tell us about and give us pictures of the canal problems that we had, the algae and all of the nasty looking stuff that was floating around out there. And we got ourselves a good contractor. And that made all the difference in the world. And it has really been remarkably different. So we're in a good place. We do need to continue with our canal dredging. That is a real challenging kind of activity, but to keep these canals vibrant and capable of drainage, which is their primary function, that's work that has to be done as well. And that's expensive and it's long term. But we have planned for that, and we do execute that plan.
Thank you. Ms. Heisman?
Sorry, I agree that our roads are well maintained, as are our canals. I noticed that, when there's a storm coming, the water is lowered. I noticed that, in healthy water, you're going to see lots of animals growing, lots of plants growing. That tells me that the water is healthy there. My daughter did a science experiment, and she grew plants best with our canal water of all the waters that we tried, better than tap water, better than anything. So they do a great job, and I don't notice any of the problems that we've had in the past with the algae overgrowth anymore.
Thank you. So the final question for the evening before we go to your concluding statements is, and this is to Ms. Highsmith first. Let's say you had a crystal ball. What would you see for Royal Palm Beach 50 years from now?
Okay, 50 years from now, what I would like to see is that my grandmother, who now is a resident in La Mancha, she lives in La Mancha, she's 90 years old. So in 50 years, I would be 91. So I would like to be her sitting there with my family visiting, my family living in La Mancha, my grandkids, my great grandkids living within the same neighborhood, being able to come and visit me, take care of me, go to their school events, be there for that whole entire continuum of life, from birth to death, all of it in between, in Royal Palm Beach, and all of us happy.
Mr. Hamara.
That was very cheerful. I appreciate that. That really is. That's a really really good question. I mean, one of the things that I think about oftentimes is what brought us here. And I mentioned that in passing, and I think it is in part that this is, no kidding, a real American city, a real American town. It's a hometown. And anytime you want to kind of check that out, just drive on west on Okeechobee Boulevard, past Target, look to both sides, and you see a high school on one side. You see a church on the other side. You see a beautiful complex of athletic fields on the same side as the high school. You see now an assisted living and memory care facility. I don't know that you could come up with more dramatic kinds of examples or samples of what makes this a real hometown that would allow one to raise a family, have a career, and stay right here, which is part of the reason why we sought so aggressively the assisted living facilities that we have right now, is to allow people to actually age in place so that they don't have to leave their family, they don't have to leave their friends, and they can stay right here in Royal Palm Beach. I'd love to see this town stay vibrant and not be passed by because of all the development around us, and that requires a tricky balance between keeping who we are, which is that real American hometown that's family oriented, and at the same time being attractive, especially to younger people, so that we can keep this town energized, moving forward, and excited about living here. So I'd like to see this town keep its character.
Please wrap up.
And yet be able to stay relevant and vibrant going forward.
The candidates will now give their concluding statements, with Mr. Hamara first.
Well, in closing, I'd like to thank the town crier, Josh and Barry Manning, and the town crier staff for putting together a really good forum. I appreciate the effort. I want to thank everybody who physically came. It's great to see the council chambers with people in it. It's remarkable improvement. Hopefully we are coming out of this. I appreciate those that were watching online, and especially giving us an opportunity to talk about things that we feel are important to us. I appreciate your time, your consideration, and especially as we get closer and closer to this election coming up on March the 8th. I also want to thank and acknowledge all those that I had endorse my reelection, including the professional firefighters and paramedics of Palm Beach County Police Benevolent Association, the Palm Beaches, Broward, and Miami-Dade Realtors, Hispanic Political Action Committee, and Liguilla News. And of course, I would definitely want to thank my fellow council members for endorsing me, Mayor Fred Pinto, Vice Mayor Richard Valentes, Councilwoman Jan Rodusky. Thank you so much for your endorsement. Also received endorsement from our county commissioner, Melissa McKinley, as well as Florida State Senator Lori Berman and Florida State Representative Rick Roth. To see a full list of the endorsements and to read more about my campaign and my background and my ideas, please feel free to go to my campaign website, which is www.reelectjeffamara.com. And I would close with a thank you to my most important supporter, without whom I would not have accomplished anything noteworthy in my life. And that's my wonderful wife, Carolyn. You make each day a masterpiece. It's a little thing we got up in our house. Once again, thank you all for your support. Thank you for being here, and have a great evening.
Ms. Heisman.
I just want to wrap up by saying also thank you to Josh, Barry, and Denise for being here, for asking great questions. I just want to reiterate that I feel that I'm the best candidate because of my experience, my background in education, my experience fundraising with a nonprofit, the PTO at H.L. Johnson, where we raised thousands and thousands of dollars for the school. I also found out just minutes before this started that the Hispanic vote of Palm Beach County is endorsing me, and getting an endorsement as a challenger of a 10-year incumbent is nearly impossible. and I could not be more proud to have gotten their endorsement. I look forward to building relationships with more residents than I already know and with the other members of the council. I'm asking for your vote on March 8th. My name is Julie Highsmith for Royal Palm Beach Village Council Group 1. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our candidates. On behalf of the Town Crier newspaper and the Village of Royal Palm Beach, I would like to thank everybody for coming out this evening and watching in person. Everybody who was watching online, you can rewatch it if you were that excited by it on the Village's YouTube site, and usually the television station as well, which you can access through the Village's website. The Town Crier asks that everybody who is eligible to vote in the election should definitely be voting in the election, no matter which candidate you are supporting. Either you are voting by mail, or you vote the day of on the 8th of March, where polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at your voting precinct. Thank you, and good night.